Come on. Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So guys, I hope everyone is doing okay. It's like never use a new setup when you're running late, because it will always bite you in the end. That being said, and this looks a little strange to me, I'm using StreamShare. Balthazar recommended it, and we'll see how this works out. I'm so far, I'm not necessarily, let me say it this way, I'm not going to rag on it. I can't rag on it. I just started using it. It's one of those things of newness. I'm not familiar with the console. I just need to get rid of some of these widgets, but I'm pretty sure it'll be perfectly okay. In fact, I know it'll be okay. I'm just not familiar with it. That being said, I'll play around with it after. It gives me a ton of widgets that I can add to the thing so I can make the videos better. So, Balthazar, good looking out. I appreciate it. I had a different lineup that I wanted to do today, and I saw I had a run-in with a gentleman on Twitter, and by the way, the StreamShare is fine. I literally just now started using it. Because I've just now started using it, it's like, oh damn, why is that there? It's one of those things. But no, this is fine. I'll get used to it, and I can add widgets into the screens and everything else. So it just makes the camera better. It's just me growing up as a channel, as you can call it. So yeah, there was a different video I intended on doing, and yes, the new mic is back, or the old mic is back. People were complaining about the new mic, that it wasn't loud enough, so I went back to this one for the short term. When I'm traveling, I'm gonna have to get a new one anyway, so why not now? That said, I ran across a video by one Bernie Sanders. Now, this video, it depends on the context you look at the video in, and I'm going to talk about it from different contexts. I'm going to talk about it how I felt when I rewatched it, because I had run in with a guy on Twitter when I realized I said something wrong, and I had to correct myself. I had to apologize because he was right. So, Bernie Sanders has a conversation with Al Jazeera. And in having this conversation with Al Jazeera, they asked him a host of topics. One of the topics they asked him having to do with third parties. Hey, there are a lot of people who would love you to join a third party, to start a third party, to run in a third party. Let's hear him. Let's hear him out. I didn't like this answer. I hated this answer. I downvoted this video, by the way. Do you know how many videos I downvote? It's so impressively far and few between. You're not speaking into the new mic correctly. You were just speaking into the top instead of using front. Oh, I see. I'll try it again. All right. So, yeah. So he gives this answer for third parties that are downvoted the video. It's so few and far between that I've downvoted a video. There was one video that a woman did where she said these ebony aliens were horrible and that they were doing bad things, like just way out there. And I was like, this video is too stupid. And not just too stupid, it's slightly racist in a weird way. And there was this one. So I wanted to give you the range of videos that I downvote, because I kind of want to get across it is few and far between that I downvote videos, and this was one of those videos I downvoted. I hated this answer. You, sir, have screamed for a political revolution, and now you're saying that political revolution needs to be completely bloodless in the Democratic Party. Let's take a look at the video. Let's see. Let me enlarge this. Come on. Okay, full screen mode is unavailable. Fair enough. And how do I flip this? I think I flipped this. Crap. How do I flip this? Desktop. No. Oh, here we are. Give me 1 second, guys. This is a new setup, and so I don't have my normal way of going about this. Alright, so let's try this. I am going to add crap. No. All right. So let me try this. I'm going to pop out a video and I'm going to see if I can add in the new element. Come on. All right. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to end this. I'm going to restart this using my regular system. And I'm going to play around with this and set this one up. And I will be back in like 2 minutes. Literally like 2 minutes. Thanks, guys. No. Let's see. Here it is. Hello. All right, good. Jesus Christ. Flip my settings. Bernie Sanders. Sorry for the technical difficulties on this one. Bernie Sanders, conversation with Al Jazeera, answering the question of independence and why he doesn't believe a third party run is viable. And not just that, he answers this question that was posed by, essentially, you could say Nick Blarney, Cornel West. She even brings up Cornel West, asking why can't he himself head a new third party. Let's see. This is out. Come on, flip. Oh, I killed my settings. There we are.
I am trying to do now is to transform the Democratic Party.
Bernie Sanders has emerged as one of the most popular politicians in the U.S. at this moment. At the same time, a lot of your...
That's weird.
What I am trying to do now.
Give me 1 second, guys. I'm not getting audio.
Is to
There we are.
transform the Democratic Party.
Bernie Sanders has emerged as one of the most popular politicians in the U.S. at this moment. At the same time, a lot of your progressive supporters aren't very happy seeing you out on a unity tour with the DNC. They say this is a party that burned you, that undermined your campaign, that is not moving to the left, that has not learned its lessons from the election. Why waste your time on them?
Okay, I know what happened during my campaign, but I also know what Trump and his extreme right-wing billionaire friends are capable of doing to this country. So what I am trying to do now is to transform the Democratic Party, transform it. And we're having some success. And that is make it into a grassroots party where you come in. You want to come in, you come in. And you go to the meetings. And what's happening in California, progressives are gradually taking over the Democratic Party. We're seeing really good things in many parts of this country. Come on in, fight for a progressive agenda. And that's what I am trying to do now. Now, will I succeed? I can't give you that answer. Maybe I won't. Maybe the resistance is so strong. But I do want to also say to you, as somebody who knows, I think, more about this than anybody in Congress, doing third-party politics is not so easy. And if you think, oh boy, we don't like the Democrats, we're going to start a third party, and wow, in a couple of years, maybe. But that has not been the history of the United States.
I wanted to ask you about that. Your friend, Dr. Cornel West, in addition to people who worked on your campaign, have said, let's leave the DNC. We need to go start this third party, this populist progressive People's Party, and we want Senator Bernie Sanders at the helm.
I love I love Cornell.
Do you accept the invitation?
No, I don't. Right now, what I am trying to do is to transform the Democratic Party. Now, we will see if starting a third party, it is easy to start it. It is a lot more difficult to make it into a strong reality. That's just an historical fact.
I know that a lot of the young people out there are still feeling the burn and they'll follow you.
Wrong question. I don't want them to follow me. I want them to follow their own instincts. If you follow me, then tomorrow somebody else comes along. That's not what democracy is about. I
was going to say they'd follow you if you started a new party.
Well,
They're not necessarily happy with the Democratic Party.
I understand that, and I appreciate the love and support, and it's mutual. There's nothing that makes me happier. When I go around the country, you're seeing just beautiful young people who are ready to get involved in an unprecedented way. In whatever way that turns out, get involved. It's not a top-down. I don't believe in top-down stuff. I believe in bottom-on-up stuff, people getting involved in whatever way makes sense to them and to their communities.
I'm not shocked by that answer. I just hate that answer. Like I despise that answer. You scream for a political revolution. What did you think a political revolution looked like? I mean, I don't necessarily think a political revolution was begging the Democratic Party for changes. I thought a political revolution was what you said it was. A literal political revolution where the order in which things have been arranged was changed. Perhaps my understanding of political revolution was wrong. Now, that said, yes, of course he's going to say that answer. He sounds like a hostage giving that answer as somebody who's an independent senator from Vermont. Now, that said, there's another part to this. If Sanders wants to run again in 2020, and Sanders brings up any talk at all about running as this kind of independent or third party, or give any voice at all to the third party stuff, they've already passed the ruling saying, we need your undying allegiance. You need to bleed on the Constitution and the Democratic Party charter if you want to be a member of the Democratic Party. And if you don't sign your name in blood, one Mr. Bernie Sanders, you're never going to be able to run for Democratic president. I'm just saying. What is he supposed to say and what is he going to say? I still hate that answer because I think Blarney is right. I think if Sanders had ran as a third party, not ran as a third party, but created a third party under his name or under his banner, I think he would have had a lot of people drain away from the Democratic Party. My suspicion is that that's the very thing that he's terrified of. It's like this kind of worst of both worlds, this unpredictable thing of what takes place when half of the Democratic Party, or a quarter or fourth of the Democratic Party rips itself away, not to mention a bunch of independents. Hey, that's called a win. That's also called potential losses in certain areas where you can't necessarily predict how that's going to happen. But you screamed into one mic after another across the country for a political revolution. What does that look like? What does that look like? It looks like change. And I would say this. If you really want to get anything done, and if you really want to get anything accomplished, that's somewhat big, one of the ways to go about it is not begging the Democratic Party in this kind of stiff and fetid way for one measly crumb. You're just asking for crumbs. I hate that answer, man. I just hate that answer. I understand he has to give the answer. I understand that there's no way, the deviations around the answer and everything else. And then her question was pointed, and I love the question. Hey, you have a lot of people who say they will follow you to the gates of hell. What do you say to those people? I don't want you to follow me. I want you to go and, do some other stuff. Go do some democratic stuff. What if the democratic stuff that they're talking about is electing you to follow you to the gates of hell? Yeah, I don't want them to do that either. Here's one more part to this. Sanders is like 100 years old. It's like 100 years old. So there's that too, the drive and energy to be able to do something like this. Does a 40-year-old Sanders pull it off as opposed to an 80-year-old? I don't know. I'm just saying I hate that answer because what she's asking him is absolutely right. You had a bunch of people who are willing to, do a lot of, I'm trying to think of some kind of colorful way to say it. But at the end of the day, you had a lot of people who supported you to some ridiculous extent. There's a line in Thursday. I can give what I mean by this by proportionality. by tangential proportionality. I know this sounds weird. It's so this idea of well, how do you say it? You could slit my throat, and with my one last dying breath, I'd apologize for bleeding on your shirt. A little less than that is where I would rate a lot of those people who are screaming at the top of their lungs and crying at those concerts. And they're not even concerts, they're political rallies, but even my phrasing of it as a concert gets across. Hate that answer. Hate that answer. Also, I want you to notice a tonal shift. Low energy Sanders. Look at the expression on his face. Oh God, I hate giving this answer. I hate giving this answer. Fuck. Been an independent my entire life, and now I gotta say, join the Democratic Party. Join up with the Dems, the guys and the people who cheated me. Join up. Join up. Grab your muskets and fight it with the hashtag resistance movements and their pussy hats. Join up. God, I know he hates giving that answer. And I say that with a certain empathy, even though it's like not, it's mixed feelings. I strongly suspect he doesn't like talking about this. I strongly suspect he doesn't like talking about this. Because I want you to notice the tonal shift that takes place when he gets to the next conversation point. There is a stark tonal shift from low energy Bernie Sanders to high energy Bernie Sanders when they're attacking Trump. I love this. This is amazing. When I first watched this, I was like, holy shit, that's a major shift in gears.
Based on your long and complicated history in American politics, do you believe that a two-party system is the most viable and effective way to have an American democracy?
No, I don't. But you know what? The problem is we are not a parliamentary system of government. And that's not to say by any means that you can't have three parties. If you were running in Europe and your party got 5% of the vote, 5%, not a whole lot, you would have seats in the parliament, depending on the country. In the United States, you get 5% of the vote. That's what you got, is 5% of the vote. You got nowhere in a hurry. If there are people who think running as an independent, running as a third-party candidate makes sense, do it. But I think right now, where we are with the great danger of Donald Trump and the billionaire class and the reactionary agenda they're up against, I am right now trying, will I be successful? We will see, to transform the Democratic Party in a very fundamental way.
So we have just passed the 100-day.
That's true, by the way. I mean, it's true to a point. I mean, they like to always trot that out of, well, we're not a parliamentary system. No, we're not. But if one new party can annihilate the weaker of the parties, meaning part of the reason that Democrats hate Sanders so much, and part of the reason that the Blairites hate Corbyn so much, is because they represent a new order of things. What Sanders, you can say, if he had his social democracy dream, his FDR dream, per se, that's a fundamental shift in what a Democrat is. You can imagine that they would hate that, especially if they like the way things are. They've magnificently advantaged themselves off of the way things are. So yeah, if there's something else. My point to this is, no, we're not a parliamentary system. Does it mean you can't have three parties? I don't necessarily think it excludes it. By the same token, you could also have one party that annihilates the other party, just like the Whigs were annihilated by the Republican Party. Let's keep going.
Mark of Trump's presidency. What has surprised you most about this presidency thus far?
His total hypocrisy. Look, I have dealt with reactionaries who say, look, I want to give tax breaks to billionaires. I want to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, education. I've dealt with those people. But this is a guy who campaigned for president saying, I am a different type of Republican vote.
Whoa, Sanders. That's a big jump there, buddy. And let me roll that back, because I want you to hear that. And let me turn this up, because this wasn't up at its loudest volume. That's my bad. But let me roll this back. And I'm going to let Sanders do his thing. I want you to hear this difference, because there is a magnificent difference between, we need to it's hard. We're not a parliamentary system, and it's rough for a party. It's hard for a party out there, man. It's hard for a party. So let's let him hear it, and I want you to hear what he shifts here. This is awesome. I love it.
We have just passed the 100-day mark of Trump's presidency.
That's a big difference. I'm sorry.
What has surprised you most about this presidency thus far?
His total hypocrisy. Look, I have dealt with, reactionaries who say, look, I want to give tax breaks to billionaires. I want to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, education. I've dealt with those people. But this is a guy who campaigned for president saying, I am a different type of Republican. Vote for me. I'm going to stand with the working class of America. I'm going to take on the establishment. That's what he campaigned on. And 5 minutes after he was elected president, he became the establishment. More billionaires in his administration than any in American history. He told us that he was going to take on Wall Street. Well, he did take on Wall Street. He took them all into his administration. He got the head of Goldman, former president of Goldman Sachs, is now his chief economic advisor. He said that he was going to provide, you remember, health care for everybody. And he supports legislation that would throw 24 million people off of health care, raise premiums for older workers, defund Planned Parenthood, etc. So his dishonesty and his hypocrisy, saying one thing to the people of this country and doing exactly the opposite, I guess, that has kind of shocked me.
Switching gears a little bit now to foreign policy. You are celebrated by progressives as being somebody who was brave in defending Palestinian human rights and criticizing some of Israel's policies, including the prime minister. That's not a popular position to take in American policy. It's risky. At the same time, last week, you joined every single U.S. senator in signing a letter to the UN Secretary General saying that the institution is biased against Israel and effectively trying to shield it from criticism.
No. I don't accept that. Look, I didn't write that letter. I signed on to the letter. It's not a letter that I would have written. There are many problems with Israel, and I have been critical and will be critical of a lot of what Israel does. On the other hand, to see Israel attacked over and over again for human rights violations, which may be true when you have countries like Saudi Arabia or Syria. Saudi Arabia, I'm not quite sure if a woman can even drive a car today, okay? So I think the thrust of that letter is not to say that Israel does not have human rights issues. It does. But to say, how come it's only Israel when you have other countries where women are treated as third-class citizens, where in Egypt, I don't know how many thousands of people are now lingering in jail. So that's the point of that. Not to defend Israel, but to say, why only Israel? You want to talk about human rights? Let's talk about human rights.
Should the UN shield Israel from criticism?
No, of course not.
Okay. This letter also denounces the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement.
I think that's a fair answer. Just saying. Look, I don't necessarily this is one of those things of it depends on who else you're signing the letter to. Who are your bedfellows? Who are your friends? If the people you're signing that letter beside are hard right, then yes, that's going to cause an eyebrow to be raised. Not to mention Nikki Haley leaving out in a huff over, because let's be honest, what they were nicking Israel with was stuff that was real. Now Sanders' point is, well, look, and I understand his point. It's a fair point. Yeah, I understand that point. It's a fair point. Why Israel? You have all of these other countries that have these human rights abuses. Why not? Why just Israel? But if I'm not mistaken, many of the times they've been trying to nick Israel, the United States has continuously protected them, even during situations where they were clearly wrong, overtly wrong, completely wrong. Their very existence, to some degree, you can make an argument, is to some degree wrong. Now, I say that only to say from the standpoint of they're occupying somebody else's land. If you're occupying somebody else's land, that's somewhat of a travesty to some degree, just right off the bat. It was not Britain's to give. Look, I'm not going to get stuck on this one. I want to get more so on the BDS one. I understand his point. I don't think I fully agree with this point, but I understand his point. I know of no other country, and again, the standard that I'm using here is to some degree westernized nations. I'm not using the standard of just every nation that is. I would imagine that Israel doesn't necessarily, they call themselves the most moral military in the world. They're not comparing themselves to somebody like, something that takes place in Yemen or something takes place in in Saudi Arabia. But yeah, the more I think about it, the less I disagree with that. Their standard is different. It's not the same standard. And I know Israel may say, well, that's not fair. You have a different standard. Yes, I have somewhat of a different standard. It's supposedly a Western nation. And this is a Western nation that's this kind of vestige of colonialism, to which case one atrocity takes place after the next. It's an open air ghetto. It's literally an apartheid state. They're going to get nicked. They're going to get nicked. Of course, there are going to be, complaints against that state. It's an apartheid state. That being said, I understand his argument. This idea of, look, there are other nations, why always Israel? 2,000 dead recently, where you have hundreds of people that were just outright murdered with Israel shooting with snipers, people in the knees, in the thighs, or in the head. The Western media, for the most part, ignores it. The Western media, for the most part, ignores it. In any perspective that it gives, it usually gives the perspective of the Israelis. If you remember, during the quote-unquote rocket attack that was supposed to have taken place out of Syria, that was blamed on Iran, I remember when just when it happened, and all the media reports immediately just took the Israeli narrative of what took place. Nobody cared that there was a counter-narrative to what was taking place. The point I'm trying to get at here is there's a magnificent bias from the standpoint of the West with what takes place in Israel. I'm sorry, it is. They stand by and allow atrocities to take place. I disagree with Sanders on this. And that's going to feed into the next thing on this, because I want to have a conversation more so about the next thing more than this particular point. I get his point. I disagree with his point. Let's keep going.
Known as BDS. You, in your lifetime, are a longtime proponent of nonviolent protests.
Yep.
This, in the eyes of many Palestinians, is the effective way to get Israel to comply with international law and respect Palestinian human rights. Do you accept that?
No, I don't. I mean, look, I respect people will do what they want to do, but I think